Hello, you guys, and thank you so much for tuning into my channel. So, my name is Christabel. I am the original Power Ranger princess, and I just wanted to make like a response video. Hang on. I wanted to make a response video to a video that I literally watched like 30 minutes ago, talking about why unambiguous Black women have essentially abandoned colorism content. So, I'm gonna try and be as brief and as quick as I can in this video, but what I want you guys to know is that the things that I'm saying are literally only my opinion. They're based on the context of my experience, and in no way am I trying to hurt, defame, or trigger anyone. I'm literally just sharing my opinion. And hey, it's gonna be unfiltered. So let's get into what colorism is. So if you don't know what colorism is the cousin of racism. It's when people in one community, like let's say the Indian community, where a dark-skinned Indian does not like a light-skinned Indian, or a light-skinned Indian doesn't like a dark-skinned Indian. Now, this is common with melanated people. It's very common amongst the Black community. And as a Black transgender woman, I've experienced a lot of colorism. Now, a lot of the colorism that I faced was primarily from my family. So I think when I was in college, I really got into the whole colorism conversation. The reason I got into the colorism conversation, if I have to be honest with you, is because I had not healed and I needed to trauma bond with other people. Listening to colorism content creators was almost like confirmation bias. Sometimes when you experience mistreatment or abuse, you need a witness. You need someone else that is going to hold you in that space and say that what has occurred is real and I see it too. So colorism content was good in that context. However, misery loves company. The reason a lot of dark-skinned, unambiguous Black women have stopped engaging in colorism content is because, girl, it's fucking it's depressing. It is depressing. Does anybody ever feel empowered after listening to a colorism conversation? Most of them are based on hypothetical situations that haven't even happened to you or me, that deal with celebrities and their preferences. So much of colorism content is based on shared trauma. Like I said, misery loves company. It does love company. And for many years, I listened to colorism content. And there was a point in my life where I got into divestment content. And at that point in my life, I had experienced rape or sexual misconduct from a person that was melanated. Now, you can imagine anyone who experiences sexual misconduct or mistreatment of any kind is going to be all sad and shit. So I got onto like Sinji, I got onto Lexus, Exodus, and I'd been listening to Chrissy and all of these other content creators. And all that did was it validated, it was confirmation biased that I had a reason to not trust Black men. Now, colorism content predominantly is, let's just be honest, it's only women that talk about colorism to the extent that they do. And a lot of men who've experienced colorism stay in a state of avoidance and simply choose to make a decision that is going to help them associate with the version of privilege that they want. So you don't get a lot of men who talk about colorism. You know what you do get? You get a lot of immigrant women or the children of West African or Caribbean, origin women who have moved to the United States and have a far more African Bantu phenotype and experience xenophobia and colorism. Now, most people can't differentiate between the two because colorism is essentially an attack on how Black you are, how coarse your hair is, how thick your lips are, how broad your nose is, all of them things. And when you come from a heritage that is predominantly Black like me, or entirely Black like I think I am, going into a space like the United States. Now, I've lived in the US. Going into a space like the United States can be challenging, or being born there and growing up with other Black people that don't see you the same way that they see themselves. Girl, it can be hurtful because you are constantly reminded of how you're different. Now, I think a lot of these women essentially loathe in their misery. What I've seen with men is that men who experience colorism are denied of, like, people see them as grown men even when they're 6 years old. And a lot of men who experience colorism often experience it from their mothers and the Black women in their society. So they end up making a very, I don't know, like everyone is different, but a lot of Black men will end up choosing women that don't remind them of their trauma. A lot of Black men, what they do is, because they experience colorism too, they try to wipe away their dark genes. So that's why they avoid darker skinned women who look like the women who birthed them. That's how they deal with colorism. I feel like a lot of women, both, real women and transgender women, or even non binary people who want to be women, and even gay men. Ooh, and I could get into a whole conversation about how colorist and misogynoir gay men are. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about why dark-skinned women abandon colorism content. So Black men, essentially, their response has been to be with Latin American women, white women, Black women who don't necessarily fit the full stereotype. A lot of Black men will play around with the different types of women, dark and light, but they kind of numb themselves out of colorism, whereas a lot of women loathe in their misery. And this is how we loathe in our misery. We spend hours online engaging in conversations about celebrities we don't know and how they chose women that don't look like us. We listen to the unhinged comments of dark-skinned Black women who are not who are the children of immigrants in America. We listen to those women and we allow how they have conflated xenophobia and colorism to influence and further traumatize us. So when you're a person who's up here 24/7 listening to how this rapper chose a light-skinned woman, how white women are attacking Black women, how this, that, and the other, how we need to be natural, how we need to focus on white men, all of that is based on desperation. All of that is based on unhealed trauma. Now, I'm a dark-skinned, very, very dark-skinned, transgender individual who identifies as a woman. Not born a woman, but I identify as a woman. And I'm an ally to women. So that's why I got into colorism content. I got out of it because I knew it was unhealthy and it triggered me. And I also understood that the majority of people who make their money off colorism content are essentially just venting about either hypothetical situations or their own trauma and pulling other Black women into that pain. That's not healthy. So when I found the exotical space, it was so different. I heard women talking about their privilege. I heard women who, even though they didn't share the same phenotype, even though they didn't have the same hair texture, even though they didn't have the same heritage, they talked about their power. They talked about how you can empower yourself. And they challenged so many talking points that colorism content could never answer. So I specifically watch Exoticals United. And look, I've gone back and forth with her channel and the people who attack her. And the one thing I can say is, as a person who watches a lot of YouTube, I would rather watch a video that lets me feel empowered, that gives me social climbing strategies, and not engage in a channel that's going to remind me of pain. A lot of colorism content is cringy, I'm sorry. A lot of these women will talk about how they've never been chosen, or they will literally criticize exotical or mixed race women because of their hair, their skin, their features, but not show their own. Now, if you've ever watched my channel, you would have noticed I've always either had braids or extensions that were in the form of like, dreadlocks. So I'm going to tie up my hair and I'm going to do something. I want to show you my natural, kinky, nappy hair that hasn't been laid down. I want to show you how the hair that I have on my head is not an emulation of Caucasian features, but rather an expression of my African beauty. And can I tell you a secret? The reason I came to embrace my 4C hair, the reason I came to embrace my big, beautiful lips, the reason I was able to embrace the beauty that I have is because I engage in conversations, or rather, I chose to watch channels that talked about empowerment, channels that decentered men, that no longer looked at Black men as the reason of their trauma or pain or problems, that no longer focused on how Black men are dating. I stopped watching channels that, like divestment channels that talk about how you should just choose a white man and be with a white man. Baby, I grew up even though my family wasn't rich, we were wealth adjacent, and I grew up with white people. And I understand that humans are humans are humans. Colorism and divestment content is extreme. It doesn't focus on the nuance. It doesn't focus on the sociology. It doesn't even focus on the psychology of human beings as a species. It simply demonizes Black culture. It allows people that are palm-colored to watch us and laugh at us regurgitate our trauma. It creates imaginary, hypothetical experiences with rappers and singers like Chris Brown, who we've never met. It creates these hypothetical situations that leave us in a state of being emotional, triggered, and feeling like the victim. This is why I, as a dark-skinned, ambiguous trans woman, have abandoned colorism content and would much rather watch the exoticals. Because anyone who talks about being in the pretty girl club, anyone who can talk about the nuances of privilege, because we all have privilege. It doesn't matter if you're yellow, blue, Hispanic, Italian, Scottish, Nigerian. We all hold some level of privilege. And colorism content doesn't focus on the privilege that we have. Instead, it keeps us disempowered, focused on hypothetical situations, hypothetical rappers that we've never met, and experiences that happened in the past. Who here has ever felt empowered after listening to 2 hours of a colorism content creator? Do you know who's felt empowered? The creators. The creators who pull you into their misery party and actually make money out of your trauma. The creators who trigger you. The creators who make you believe that the world is more discriminatory than what it is. The creators that you can't even truly relate to. My advice for dark-skinned trans women or dark-skinned unambiguous or ambiguous naturally born women is to rather focus on, like the law of attraction. If you can't handle the exoticals, and because the exoticals are the exoticals don't play with their words. So if you can't handle the exoticals, my advice is then listen to Louise Hay. Listen to what's his name? Tony Robbins. Focus on creators that are going to build your self-esteem and not allow you to loathe in their perceived misery. This is why us as dark-skinned, unambiguous, female-presenting, trans or naturally born women would rather listen to an empowered exotical as opposed to a broken down colorist wine baby. I'm sorry. Girl, do they even show their hair? Colorist content creators, are they in their real hair, or are they in blonde wigs? Do they have their hair laid back as though it was naturally, it came out their scalp that way? Or do they do this? Do any of them show you their naps? Do any of them talk about how amazing it is to have big lips? Do any of them talk about the power it is in being dark-skinned? No. The word exotic means that you look different from everyone else. It means you stand out. And you can stand out in different ways. We as Black people are getting too caught up in the baggage of our ancestors, the baggage of the people we think are our friends, the baggage of the internet, and, shit, that doesn't really matter. As as a person, an individual, an empath, someone giving you unsolicited advice, girl, don't listen to colorist content creators. Don't. It'll make you feel sad. Rather go, I don't know, go online shopping. Go buy yourself a new dress. Go for a massage. Go hang out with your family. Or listen to psychology content that helps you become a more empowered person, as opposed to listening to content creators that make you feel angry about the state of the world. Girl, we have